Dun, dun, dun. And we're live, which is super fun. And today I'm so excited. I have a new friend and colleague, Dr. Margriet, and please help me with the proper pronunciation of your last name.
Hi, Jorea. Yeah, it's Marguerite. That's perfect. You got it in one.
Okay, great. So anyway, we really wanted to get together and talk about something that we both see with our clients a lot, which is that morning energy. Half of my clients come to me talking about how they can barely get out of bed, or they're dragging themselves to a coffee pot, or how, you know, their energy is okay, but things are rather dull. They don't feel like they've got that oomph in the morning, which most of us really should have, right?
Yeah.
And I know that that's something that you see as well. Correct?
Absolutely. Yeah. So like you, obviously, I love working with functional medicine and using and seeing how you can use functional medicine kind of approach to really help the body function at its optimal. And I think when you start looking at, when people come with that thing about, oh, I feel so yuck in the mornings, it takes me 2-3 hours to really feel like I'm kind of firing on all cylinders. I mean, I hear that a lot.
Human. Yeah,
human. And then sometimes with or without the help of coffee, it's the triple espresso, the IV caffeine kind of thing. But even so, just that feeling like a lot of my clients, they use the word drugged, so they say, I feel drugged or I feel hungover, even if I haven't been, indulging the night before. And and it's not a great place from which to start your day, right?
No.
Because the impact of that, that when you lose the first 2-3 hours of your day, it kind of makes the rest of the day feel a bit kind of like you're forever on catch up,
Exactly. I was just going to say that you're behind already because you've spent the first couple hours just trying to get going, and then you've got all that catch up that you're doing, and then by the time you get to the evening, you're either thoroughly exhausted or you're catching that second wind, right?
Exactly.
And then all of a sudden you've got this burst of energy, and you're staying up way later than you thought that you really, or that that you should be.
Yeah.
But because you've got that energy and you didn't have it all day, it's almost like we become very opportunistic and we latch on to that opportunity. And so we do all the things, that's when all the laundry gets done, or that's when the house cleaning gets done, because we've got the energy to finally do it.
Yeah, exactly. And I love that what you just said about getting that second win, because it's almost like if you're the sort of person who, you might have had 7 hours sleep, 8 hours sleep, 9 hours sleep, so in theory, what we would count as enough sleep, and we can have a talk about that in a moment about what do we think is enough, because that's an interesting one right there. But it's that thing about it's almost like you're waiting to get your first wind, and if that happens by 9 a.m., 10 a.m., and then you can finally get going. And then that second, in my clients, I often see then there's a sort of an afternoon slump, and then they get their second win in the evening. And exactly as you say, what then happens is you're always playing catch up. You're kind of losing huge chunks of your day. So, and that's what happens. And what I find, I don't know whether you find the same, Toraya, but this situation evolves over time. So it kind of is like normal. And what I find with a lot of people I speak to, a lot of women especially, that they go, what, wait, hang on, most people don't do this?
Right.
I said, no, like this. They said, well, hang on a minute. Isn't it because I'm 40 something, because I'm 50 something, that this is why I have this thing in the morning where I just don't jump out of bed with energy? I kind of have to do this 1 hour, 2 hour kind of working hard to get myself ready and ready to function, And then you go, no, this is not normal. This is not because of your age. This is not because of menopause. This is not because of, this is to do with, some of your underlying fundamental health physiology, what's going on in your body, how your body's showing up, right?
Right.
And when we have that conversation, they go, oh, hang on.
Right. There's possibility.
Yeah, exactly.
And I love to, like you, I go to the functional medicine, which really means I'm looking at the biochemistry of the body, right? So I take a look underneath the covers through some functional medicine laboratory work that we can do. We can discover really what's happening here. And, the body has what's called a circadian rhythm. It's the normal natural rhythm that it has throughout the day. And through some of these unique labs, I can actually see that rhythm of what's happening across the chart. And I can really see when it is malfunctioning or inverted. So it looks like somebody is working third shift all the time. And so they're getting their energy at night, yet they don't have any energy in the morning, and it's inverted in a sense. And I can also see that first hour of the day, right, is very, very critical in terms of how we are performing from a biochemical standard. And so, if that first hour of the day is not giving us that energy boost that we need, that tells me that there's more happening underneath the covers, especially in the areas of the immune system and everything else. And so, the circadian rhythm is super important. And I think that we've really gotten ourselves into a society where we are using a ton of artificial light. We're indoors more often than we need to be, or that we should be, really, and that is really one of the things that is contributing to this very, very common scenario, not normal, like you pointed out, but very common scenario of people not having energy.
And a conversation I often find myself having, people say to me, but I'm naturally a night owl and I naturally don't function very well in the morning, and I think that's really interesting, because what my experience is that once we start really taking care of the body's natural rhythms, like you say, the circadian rhythms, and you go, okay, what does it look like to actively start supporting that? That quite often people who thought they were night owls suddenly turn out they're not night owls at all, but they've just for years and years, for decades, have been living off this kind of second wind that happens, 6 p.m, 8 p.m, and then they go, okay, now I can finally function, now I can catch up on all those emails and do all that stuff that I just couldn't face doing during the day. So it's an interesting thing, where we think our natural body clock sits versus what is actually the case when it's well supported. So first, I just wanted to say that, because obviously we've kind of, when we talked about having this conversation about supercharging your morning energy, I will just say that I'm a big fan in keeping things simple, and like we can start thinking about biochemistry and start thinking about complicated things. I will just say, before we dive into any of that, one of the experiences I have with a lot of my clients is that they're just not very well hydrated.
Yes.
And so I will just say, before we dive into the kind of more intricate parts of a circadian rhythm kind of thing, which I think is fascinating work to do, but before we ever go there, the first thing I always ask people is like, okay, so how much are you drinking, and actually what are you drinking?
Right, because it makes a difference.
Huge. And so that kind of the first piece of work that we always do is just to make sure that if we're getting that drug thing in the morning, because if you think about it, when you've been asleep for 6, 7, 8 hours at night, you haven't been drinking or eating all that time, right?
Correct.
And especially for those of us who are mouth breathers and snore, we've been merrily drying out our mouths and drying out our bodies as we are sleeping through the night, which is fine. But the first thing really is, how hydrated are you in the morning? Because when if you generally walk around not that hydrated, then the chances are you are going to feel sluggish in the morning, just for that reason alone, because it is the time of day where you've already been asleep most of the night and not drinking and so on. So you're going to feel a little bit from a dehydrated perspective.
Of course.
So I would always take that one off the table first. We always go, okay, let's just have a look at that before we look at anything kind of a little bit more involved before. So and I talk to my clients a lot about this thing about being super hydrated. They now learn the language. They go, yes, I'm doing super hydration. They come and tell me that they're being super hydrated. And I think it's such a simple tweak to make, just to make sure that you are properly hydrated. So your morning energy slump is nothing to do with any kind of mild dehydration.
Right.
That's the first one. We always take that one off the table.
So then going directly to the coffee pot or going directly to tea may not be the best idea.
Exactly. So what do you tell your clients? Like, what's a good rehydrating, recharging thing to drink first thing in the morning?
Oh gosh. One of my favorites is water, very simple, water with lemon juice and a couple sprinkles of Himalayan sea salt, some kind of sea salt.
Okay, and so what's the salt about in that?
Well, the salt is, and it's not just any salt, so not table salt, but sea salt specifically. It doesn't have to be Himalayan, doesn't have to be pink, it's just sea salt.
Okay.
So as long as they're getting sea salt, the importance of that for me are the minerals and the electrolytes, because part of hydration, we need those constituents in that water. It can't just be pure H2O. Right. Yeah. And of course, most drinking water isn't pure H2O, but I'm not necessarily certain, how filtered is it? Are we taking out those minerals too much? So having some of those minerals from the sea salt in there, and the lemon juice also adds a little bit of flavor, because a lot of people complain to me when I talk about hydration is that water tastes very plain, boring. They can't stand it. Yeah. So I start with that in the morning, and I let my clients experiment with the temperature, because sometimes cold water is a shock to the system. Sometimes warm is not enough. Sometimes they need something warmed up hot, like a mug of tea.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting thing, isn't it? Like playing with that morning hydration. And I have to say that is always the first piece of work. Supercharging your morning energy is, as soon as you wake up, get a nice hydrating drink into you, and allowing yourself to really connect with what really feels good to you in that, because rather than just saying, like, you have to have a glass of water. I mean, I'm a real, these are like my, my little buddies. I travel everywhere with my little carafe and my little glass, and I'm a bit of a nerd about it, but I love it. It's always, I have one by my bed, I have one by my desk, by my computer, and wherever I tend to spend time. So it's just easy.
You make it easy.
Making it easy, so that it's not a struggle, not a like, oh, I forgot my water bottle. Oh, because you have one water bottle that has to come out of your work bag, and then it has to go in by your bed, and then so it's making it easy and giving yourself a chance to find something that you really love. That is actually hydrating. So just on that note then, to say with the caffeine, obviously you and I both know caffeine is a diuretic, and what that means is that it makes you pee out more fluids than you're taking in.
Yes.
So it's kind of like, it's like a bank account, taking out more money than you're putting in, you're going to run into the red, right? Same with hydration. If you have fluids that are lots of caffeine in them, whether that's tea or coffee or, even green tea has, healthy as it is, great as it is, but it's still got quite a lot of caffeine in. Things like Red Bull, Coca-Cola, all these kinds of types of drinks that have quite a lot of caffeine in. So, and sometimes even medication actually that has, so for example, I have clients who say, for example, take caffeine containing painkillers. So, anyhow, so we won't go into the caffeine thing too much, but the point being is that you want something that is truly hydrating, that truly feels good to you, that feels like you're doing. And I also talk to my clients a lot about, like, it's about that little moment of self-nurture. It's about,
you're starting your day off with that being first and foremost, which all my clients, I don't know about you, but all of them, I haven't found an exception yet. They wait until the end of the day to take care of themselves. Yeah.
And I think, and I think this is one of the areas where you and I both really, we get excited about this idea that the journey towards getting yourself healthy, the journey of supporting your health and nurturing your health, is one ultimately about beautiful, beautiful self-nurture. And I totally agree with you. As women, often it's about everybody else first, and then you take care of yourself.
Yes.
Whereas actually, doing that, having an attitude of self-nurture is what I like. This attitude that you grab the moments where you can, you grab the moment first thing in the morning, and instead of just having a slug of water out the tap, you could have a beautiful glass with a nice slice of lemon in it, that or a hot water with some fresh ginger in it, or you could have your favorite mint tea, or you could, and just take yourself 5 minutes, just give yourself 5 minutes just to and rehydrate. So
exactly. So you and I are doing the same thing. We're advising our clients first thing in the morning, do something to hydrate. Does not mean that you're giving up caffeine altogether. No. It just means we want to replenish what we lost in that 7, 8, 9 hour time frame and start there. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah. And then I think, once we've sort of taken care of good hydration, and then, and then for most of the ladies who I work with, there would still be, that wouldn't sort of suddenly fix it all magically, usually, that morning energy, but it would certainly be better. I think the body functions so much better when it's beautifully hydrated than when it's sort of, left to kind of work it out by itself.
Exactly.
And especially in the winter time, so I'm in the UK, so in the obviously winter time here, in the summer everyone's really good at walking around with their bottle of water, and in the winter all these bottles of water disappear.
Yes.
And the body's just kind of left to, exposed to, radiators and, like you said, artificial light and artificial heating, and we're kind of, so it's an interesting one. Yeah. So that hydration piece.
Let's talk about the other piece that is so influential in terms of our morning energy that a lot of people forget, which is one of my favorite ones. For me, it's been one of the most influential towards my own health and recovery from my chronic illness, in terms of starting to feel a lot better from an energy perspective, is getting outside first thing in the morning and getting that sunlight.
Yeah.
So why is this so critical in terms of our morning energy, this sunlight?
Yeah, so I think that's a really, really great question. And I think our relationship to natural daylight is very interesting, actually. And I think there are two things about that. The first one is getting natural daylight first thing in the morning. And, I can talk a little bit about why that is in a moment. And the other relationship with natural daylight is how much of it do we get during the day?
Yes.
Because again, a lot of our lives are indoors, especially in the winter time. It's artificial light. So we're not actually, if you sometimes say to my clients, just check in between this, when we next see each other, how many hours of daylight do you actually get during the day? And they go, well, when I walk from the car into my office, so that's 2 minutes. Same way back again. When I do the grocery, I get out of the car and I go into the shop. So that's another 2 minutes. And back again, so that's 8 minutes. Woo,
Yes.
And we add up all the little bits, and it's maybe 20 minutes a day if we're lucky.
Yes,
because it's the daylight only. So there's that whole thing about how much daylight do you get, especially in the winter time, when of course we haven't got the daylight availability is already shorter, but it's still pretty good. It's different if you live sort of somewhere like in the North Pole or the South Pole, where you really don't see daylight at all in the winter, but for us it's still okay. So there's that morning daylight thing, and then there's the general daylight exposure, and I think both are important in terms of supporting your biological clock. But just coming onto that morning daylight practice specifically, there's something really amazing that happens. So when you think about circadian rhythm, so just to kind of geek out about this for a moment, we have a sort of an awake alert hormone called cortisol. Yeah, and I know that you talk to your clients about this as well, don't you? So
I do, yes.
And then we have a kind of sleep hormone called melatonin. Now, it's obviously the body is incredibly complex, and it is, if you want to get into all the details, but suffice it to say, what we want during the day, we want cortisol levels to be high, so we're nice and awake, and melatonin levels to be low. So that's the daytime. At nighttime, you want to switch them over. So you want a good sleep hormone, so your brain goes, oh, okay, I can sleep now. and you want low cortisol, so your brain goes, okay, I'm not being prodded by this cortisol to be alert and awake. I can just relax. So it's like this dance that goes on through the 24 hours, you know, sort of cortisol is high in the day, low at night. Melatonin is high at night, low in the day. And you kind of want them to do this. And they kind of do this sort of dance together, you know. And
they do. Yeah.
And it's fascinating. I mean, I talk to my clients about the cortisol melatonin dance, you know, like, how's the dance?
Yeah. And when I talk about inverted circadian rhythm, that's exactly what I'm talking about, is when I see somebody who's got high cortisol at night and low melatonin at night, when it should be the opposite, right? And then I'll see the reverse during the daytime. And so that is classically what we will see with somebody who works swing or grave shift. So they're working through the night and they're sleeping through the day. That would be normal for them. But for people who are awake during the day or working during the day, it can be really difficult if your hormone levels are on that swing and you're trying with all your might to have any kind of energy throughout the day. So
exactly. And for those of people who are listening who are visual like I am, I'm just going to draw. I've just literally drawn a little diagram to put that point home, because if you're anything like me, I have to go, hang on, just show me that in the picture. Just show me that in the picture. So I'm just going to show you the picture. So I'm a great fan for diagrams, right? I love that. I love a good diagram. So what you were just describing was daytime.
Yes.
So the black line is cortisol. Hang on, I can't do this in mirror image. The black line is cortisol. So we want that high during the day and low so this is nighttime, low at night.
Yes.
And melatonin is the opposite. We want it, that's the green line. We want it low during the day and high at night. And the fantastic thing especially about melatonin, is that it's triggered by daylight. So in fact, both of the set points of these hormones are triggered by daylight. So what makes your brain realize that in the morning, it's cortisol time. Come on, melatonin, your job is done. We've done the sleeping, we've done the night. We now want to wake up and fire up. And that switch is daylight. It's
full spectrum sunlight, not turning
daylight.
on the light.
No,
not turning on the light in the bedroom and not getting daylight through a window, which filters out some of those critical frequencies or spectrum, part of the spectrum. It's literally getting outside and getting into the sunlight. So now there were a couple things. Yeah.
I'm going to interrupt you for a moment, because you live in California, so you can talk about sunlight. But I live in the UK. We don't talk about sunlight. We talk about daylight.
That's right. In fact, I've got lots of clients who are in the Pacific Northwest or in places where it's overcast a lot of the time. And the first question I get is, well, if it's overcast, then it's not even worth it. And I'm like, no. Just because there's clouds doesn't mean that you're not getting a full spectrum of light. It's still important. I still want you to be outside. So my recommendation is always take that morning beverage that you're using to hydrate.
Yeah.
Go sit out in the sun or stand in the sun or walk in the sun. You don't have to make it a major deal. Yeah. And, 10, 15 minutes. Yeah. That's it. That's really all we need. Yeah. So, yes.
Yeah. So in this diagram, what we're talking about is this is slightly simplified, but basically that switch over from nighttime. So I should have drawn this the other way around, shouldn't I? We're going backwards now. But you want at nighttime going into day, you want to give your body the clear signal. Okay, melatonin, please switch off and come down. And cortisol, please do your thing and go up.
Yes.
And so what happens is that when you get that daylight spectrum into your eyeballs, and I talk to my clients about naked eyeballs.
I love that term.
So we don't want any contact lenses. We don't want any no glasses. We don't want any sunglasses. We don't want any car windows or any windows. We just want your eyeballs and the daylight. That's it. So we want
which let's just be really clear. This doesn't mean looking at the sun and blinding yourself. This just means don't have any eyewear on or have any windows. Yes.
Exactly. And then what you want to do is you want to grab yourself, like you say, a pulse of about 5, 10, 15 minutes. I mean, 10 minutes is what I say to my clients. You want to grab yourself a pulse of 10 minutes of actual daylights into your eyeballs, and it does something really powerful into the midbrain, and it switches on like a switch, and it tells that cortisol to come on so that you feel more awake in the morning.
Yes.
And what I find, and it is like a switch. You and I know it's called a cortisol awakening response, or a CAR, a car.
Yes.
Yeah. So you want your car stimulated. You have to kind of make it happen, because, as we've already said, in most of our lifestyles, we've lost that natural go outside first thing in the morning, get some daylight into naked eyeballs. We lose that.
Absolutely.
And because of our lifestyles, and especially in the winter time, in the when the daylight shortens. So it's a really simple thing to do in terms of starting to boost your morning energy, is to give yourself that daylight pulse, that car kick to the midbrain, to tell the melatonin come down, tell the cortisol go up. And it's an amazing thing. And what I like when I measure these things in my clients, often the car just isn't there.
Yeah.
It's like, where's the car?
Flatlined.
I'm looking on the test results going, where is it?
Flatlined. Yeah.
It's not there.
Yeah.
What have you done with your car? And they go, what do you mean?
It's parked in my driveway. What are you talking about?
But it's like, where's the car? And they go, what's the car? And they go, okay, so and it's a practice that we start putting into place. Now, what that means is if you do it for one day, you're not going to suddenly wake up the next day going, oh, I feel really good now, because it's something that's been lost over time. And it takes a little bit of time for the brain to go back in, like, oh, you want me to do the car now? Ah, okay. Well, do it again tomorrow morning, and I'll see if I feel like it. And the next day. Do you really mean it? We've done it 7 days in a row now. Okay, then I might just be interested. And your brain has to be sort of, cajoled back into having a car response to trigger that cortisol. And it's fascinating.
Really interesting to me is I've had a lot of clients report back, it really only takes 2 or 3 days before they do start to feel a difference.
Yeah.
And the car being that cortisol awakening response, there's a very key word in there, and that word is awakening, which means we really want to time this to be within the first hour of you waking up. We don't want your first morning light to be 2 or 3 hours after you've woken up.
Yes.
And done all your morning duties. We're really talking about first thing, wake up, do whatever you need to do to relieve yourself and all of those things, brushing your teeth. But as soon as you can, get outside to help with this, because not only is it energy and affecting our melatonin levels and our ability to sleep well, but it's kicking off, and we're not going to get into the details of this, but it's kicking off a bunch of other processes in the body that are super important to our immune system and all sorts of other things. So, that's why this one little thing, getting outside, can be such a huge impact to somebody and how they feel throughout the day.
Definitely. And like we said, it's something that just needs to be conditioned in over a few days and have it and I think the thing is about it is the consistency with which you then do it.
Yes.
And if I say to my clients, look, I'm going to give you this pill. So, by background, I'm a doctor. So people kind of expect me to prescribe them pills, and then they're a bit surprised when I don't. Actually, I'm prescribing you a pulse of daylight. And they go, what? But actually, no, that's what I want you to do. I'm serious. Do you want me to write it on a prescription, Pete? But no, it's okay. I've got it. But it sounds so low tech, right? But if I said to you, look, you need to take this tablet every morning, you'd do it, right? Because as a culture, we're used to doing that. We're used to, okay, I have to take the tablet with breakfast every morning, and then I do it, and then I'm going to feel better. That's a kind of a health creation thing that we are familiar with. when someone says to you, actually, what I need you to do is have a, a beautiful glass of water first thing in the morning, preferably take it outside, and go and get yourself 10 minutes of daylight into naked eyeballs. That's your prescription. They're like, okay, and that's going to work how?
Right.
Because it seems inconceivable that something as simple as that would have such major impact on how the body actually functions,
Yes.
but it does, and we can measure it.
Absolutely.
You could spend a lot of money on doing your adrenal stress profile every week for the next 4 weeks. You could spend that money, or you could just take our word for it and go, look, you haven't got a car here, and look, 4 weeks later you've got a car now. Wow. And you're feeling better in the morning. Yeah, actually I am. It's no longer taking 10 o'clock. I'm now feeling kind of with it, it's no longer taking 3 hours, it's now taking half an hour. Great. Right. Yeah. Now let's dial it up. Now let's take you to the next level. And it's all of these layers, isn't it? But what I love about functional medicine, it's that word functional. It's really working with how the body actually functions, and what does it need to function, so that it can show up for you.
That's right. That's right.
It's so exciting.
It is. It absolutely is. And I think one of the best parts about functional medicine is that what we're really dealing with, for the most part, are lifestyle issues. And they're not the fault of the person necessarily. Like, a lot of these lifestyle issues are societal wide. So it's, it's the fact that we don't live in a hut, and that we're outside first thing in the morning looking for our food. We're just not that culture anymore, but that is how we evolved, with all of the different light cues and other cues from our natural environment. And so some of what we're seeing now with chronic illness is just, we've gotten so far away from that natural environment that we're starting to see the downstream effects. So employing something as simple as this is kind of a shock to a lot of my clients, of like, what you mean it's that simple? Actually, it kind of is, which is the beauty of it. And it's very controllable. I think the biggest complaints that I get are winter.
Right.
When it's cold or raining. It's like, it's snowing or raining. Do I still have to go outside? And the answer is yes.
Yeah.
It's just bundle up, invest in a nice warm hat and gloves and a puffy coat, and get yourself outside for the first 10 minutes. And I mean, it's I can't even express right now how much of a game changer that one simple lifestyle change can be for somebody's overall health. And anyway, so
it's a fantastic thing. And I think, and I think the other thing, the practical thing, I mean, I do have some clients who are just so poorly that physically moving in the morning is really, really hard. And then we do have to have the conversation about, okay, so what are the practical options? I do have some clients who literally, they will just open the whole window, sit in front of the window with their and actually have daylight that way, but obviously no glass between them and the light. So it's a real, it's looking at the practicalities of what's practical for you. But the best thing, if it's at all possible, like you say, rain or shine, get your jacket out, go and sit outside, have your mug of yummy drink, and just give yourself that 10 minutes. And it is truly astonishing. Because, like you say, it triggers it's the on switch really for your whole adrenal system to kind of go, oh, hang on. It's like the adrenal system's on standby all night, and it's going, okay, hang on, wait for the light signal, wait for the signal. Oh, there is no signal. Oh, there's a signal now. Okay, right, this is where I do my thing, and it kind of, it's like it's art saying to the adrenal system, right, you can do your thing now. You can, like the car, that pulse is not just important to kind of help your morning energy, it actually kickstarts your adrenal system. And for those of us who have conditions like adrenal fatigue, giving your adrenal system just that kind of green light every morning, it just kind of reminds it, okay, this is where you kind of start to do your thing. This is where and in time, with lots of adrenal system nurture, it will then start to kind of go, okay, Yeah. So that's another thing, even if it's not just morning grogginess, but you're actually on a journey of adrenal fatigue and fatigue recovery work, or, as you said, the part of the adrenal system is so influential in how our immune system shows up and in what our chronic inflammatory levels are. Getting all of that to play ball, really, and have it functioning at a level that really serves you instead of it kind of pulling you down. But this practice is where it all starts. And as simple as it sounds, I mean, it sounds ridiculously simple, doesn't it?
It does. It sounds like it's impossible, like we're, selling some kind of snake oil or something like that. But I mean, the truth of the matter is that our body is so tied into these various different cues from our natural world, and sunlight is a huge cue. And so are seasonal changes and temperature and everything else. But from a daily perspective, it really does come down to sunlight and how much how much of it we're actually getting. Yeah. So, in terms of morning energy, like if I were to boil it down to one simple practice, like the two that we've talked about are ideal. They're absolutely fantastic. And if you don't do anything else, you're still going to notice a difference in your overall morning energy.
That's it. Yeah. Yeah, you are. You're really helping yourself to set yourself up for success, That's and right. The truth is your body wants to serve you well. When you're in fatigue, I mean, you've had your health journey, I've had my health journey, that's what's taken both of us into this kind of work. And personally, I think that's actually fantastic, because when you know yourself from your own personal experience, what it's like to be in severe fatigue or to be in severe, the health issues that you had. I think when you know that from your own experience, plus then having all our professional knowledge and training, absolutely. there is no substitute for that. Because it's not until you experience, you can read something on a piece of paper all you like, but until you've experienced what it really is to have no energy in the morning, your body will not move. And that's right. Going to work, well, that's not going to happen, because actually it just won't. So, it's a powerful lesson, but actually the real power in that lesson is your body wants to heal. It wants to stand up straight again. It's about giving it the right support so that it can start to find its functional kind of, levels again.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And one thing I was always fascinated by, so when I was at medical school years ago, I remember really clearly learning about the physiology of the heart. And I remember this professor of cardiology standing at the front of the lecture theatre telling us, your heart has a 6-fold reserve in functioning. And what that means is, it functions at this level and it has to come right down to the last sixth, back to that fuel gauge. It has to go right into the red before it even lets you know that there's a problem. This is how forgiving our organs are. And you could say that applies to the heart, it applies to your kidneys, it applies to your brain function, it applies to your liver function, it applies to your adrenal system. So by the time you're somebody who is seriously struggling with adrenal fatigue and horrible morning energy and just can't get going, as long as it isn't sort of simple hydration, like we already said. But if that's what's happening in your body, your car is just got up and gone. If that's where your body is, actually, that's taken a long time to get there. Because we had to use up all these levels of reserve before it finally went, I can't do this anymore, please help me. And it wants to, have not only function again, but have those reserves built up again.
Yes.
And so what I have a lot of my clients say to me, so hang on, how long have I got to do this for? And I'm going, well, till you feel better. And then for another, however long it took you to feel better, another times 6 after that. So we get all your reserve capacity back up to super shiny. So we don't get back into this place. Okay. And that's an interesting one, right?
It is an interesting conversation. And it's usually when I have that conversation, my question is, well, how long do you want to feel better?
Yeah.
And if you are really looking towards having amazing energy, feeling vitality, feeling like you've got that youthful energy for the rest of your life, or well into your 90s, or as a friend of mine says, being a ninja in your 90s. Like, if you are looking at that as your goal, you're going to want to look at these lifestyle changes and the kinds of things that you do when you work with a practitioner like yourself or myself. You're going to start really wanting to adopt them for a lifetime.
Yes.
And it's a shame that we've lost track of these beautiful pieces, but it's also beautiful that we've got people like you and myself who can help steer people back in the right direction. So, you know, I always ask them how long they want to, how long do you want to feel amazing? You know, so it's a different kind of conversation. Instead of thinking of like, it's not a diet. It's not a, I'm doing this for a short period of time and then I get to get off of it. It's really a change in how you interact with the world and interact with your lifestyle, so that you can maintain that reserve that you were talking about, that sixfold reserve for a long time. Because what do we need it for? We need it for the acute incidences that happen in our lifetime. You know, we need it for the accident in a car. We need it for those kinds of situations, so that we can draw on those reserves and get through those, survive through those. So that's really what we're talking about. But
definitely.
Margriet, this was such a wonderful conversation. How do people who are listening, how do they find you? What's your website? Let's at least steer them in that direction.
Okay, so my website, that's a great place to start, actually. My website is www.drmargriet.com, and Margriet is spelled so it's DRMARGRIET.com. Maybe you can put it in the comments.
I will definitely put it in the comments on my side. Yep, and you've got the link to put it on your side. So thank you so much. I'm so happy to collaborate with you, and I'm sure we'll do more of these in the future.
I would absolutely love that. It's been an absolute pleasure. Really fun to speak.
Great. And if anybody has questions and you're seeing this on the recording, please go ahead and ask questions. Dr. Margriet and myself will get in there and we'll answer those questions. We're happy to help. Okay.
Fantastic.
All right. We'll talk to you soon.
Take care. Bye.